Karl Marx is one of the most influential and controversial thinkers in human history. A man whose ideas ignited revolutions, shaped governments, and challenged the very foundation of capitalism. But who was Karl Marx? What did he believe? And why does his name still spark such fierce debate, over 140 years after his death? Today, we'll dive deep into the life, the philosophy, and the legacy of Karl Marx. Karl Heinrich Marx was born in 1818 in Trier, in what is now Germany. He was raised in a middle-class, intellectual Jewish family that converted to Christianity partly to avoid the harsh restrictions on Jews at the time. From a young age, Marx showed a sharp mind and a rebellious spirit. He studied philosophy and law at the University of Bonn and then Berlin, where he became deeply interested in the radical ideas brewing across Europe. In the 1840s, Europe was changing rapidly. Industrialization was transforming cities and economies. But with that transformation came exploitation, child labor, poverty, brutal factory conditions, and Marx saw it all. In 1844, Marx met Friedrich Engels, the son of a wealthy industrialist who also believed capitalism was broken. Together, they formed one of the most important intellectual partnerships in history. So what did Karl Marx actually believe? At the heart of his thinking was a simple idea: history is a story of class struggle. Marx believed that in every era, society has been divided between those who own the means of production, land, factories, capital, and those who must sell their labor to survive. In his time, that meant a battle between the bourgeoisie, the capitalist class, and the proletariat, the working class. Marx argued that capitalism, while productive, was inherently exploitative. Workers created value, but the profits were taken by capitalists. This, he believed, was unsustainable. Graphic timeline of historical stages: feudalism, capitalism, socialism, communism. He also believed that capitalism would eventually collapse under its own contradictions. Why? Capitalism concentrates wealth in fewer and fewer hands. It creates inequality and crises like overproduction and unemployment. And it alienates workers from their work, from themselves, and from each other. Marx envisioned a revolution, a moment when the working class would rise up, overthrow the bourgeoisie, and seize the means of production. This would begin a period of socialism, where workers controlled industry and wealth was distributed fairly. Eventually, this would lead to communism, a stateless, classless society with no private property and no exploitation. In 1848, Marx and Engels published their most famous work, the Communist Manifesto. Its opening line became legendary: "A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism." The manifesto was a political call to arms. It laid out Marx's theory of history, explained the exploitation of workers, and called for the working class to unite and overthrow the capitalist system. It was published just as revolutions were sweeping across Europe. Though most of those uprisings failed, the manifesto would go on to become one of the most widely read political documents in history. Quote graphic: "Workers of the world, unite!" But Marx wasn't done. He spent the next decades refining his theories, especially in his massive work, Das Kapital. In 1867, Marx published the first volume of Das Kapital. It was his attempt to explain how capitalism works and why it inevitably fails. He introduced concepts like surplus value, the profit made by capitalists by paying workers less than the value they produce; commodity fetishism, the idea that we see products, but forget the labor behind them; and crisis theory, the idea that capitalism is prone to internal breakdowns, like recessions and depressions. But Das Kapital was dense, difficult, and largely ignored during Marx's lifetime. Marx himself lived in poverty for much of his life. He moved to London in exile, where he continued to write, raise a family, and battle illness. He died in 1883, with only a small group attending his funeral. But his ideas were just getting started. After his death, Marx's ideas took on a life of their own. In 1917, Lenin and the Bolsheviks claimed to bring Marx's vision to life during the Russian Revolution, though many argue they distorted his ideas to fit their own goals. Marxism became the foundation for Soviet communism, Maoism in China, and other revolutionary movements across the 20th century. But Marx himself never ruled a country. He was a philosopher, not a politician. And many modern Marxists argue that what happened in the Soviet Union was a betrayal of his vision, not a fulfillment of it. B-roll, Berlin Wall falling, capitalism, Occupy movement. In the West, Marx's ideas were often suppressed, demonized, or misunderstood, especially during the Cold War. But in the 21st century, Marx is having something of a comeback. Economic inequality, climate crisis, and the erosion of workers' rights have led many, especially younger generations, to revisit his critiques of capitalism. Was Karl Marx right? That depends who you ask. Some say he misunderstood human nature, ignored the benefits of markets, and inspired oppressive regimes. Others argue he diagnosed the core flaws of capitalism: exploitation, inequality, and crisis with remarkable clarity. Whether you agree with him or not, one thing is certain. Karl Marx changed the world. Not through power, or armies, or wealth, but through ideas. So what do you think? Was Marx a prophet, a villain, or just a man ahead of his time? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more deep dives into history, philosophy, and ideas that shape our world.